Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the June 3rd, 2019 Port Authority Board meeting. First item on the agenda is the minutes. Approve or correct the minutes of our May 20th meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve and a second from Mrs. Muir. Any questions? Any questions at all? Hearing none, vote. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as posted, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes passed. Comments from the public. Mr. Cooper, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you, I have nothing.
All right. Just a reminder, I believe, Mr. Messina, that we and the staff, I believe we have a voters meeting this Saturday.
Correct.
Saturday.
Correct, 10 o'clock.
At 10 o'clock, if you're interested in coming. That first one of the year. All right, I think we've got a lot of things to cover, I think, tonight. We'll see what happens, see what goes on with them. I've got a few things. Start out with the Harbor Master, Mr. Frame.
All right. Last time somebody asked a question on how our insurance would be impacted by the new parking lot. And I spoke with Mr. Keene at General Insurance, and he said since we do not have a building in the new parking lot, that he didn't feel it would impact our insurance at all. That our general thing covers parking lots and it would be fine. So he was going to send me an email to that regard, and I haven't seen it yet, but
we would post that email with our policy or something like that. Have it available? No?
I don't think it is. I think it's already added in there as part of the property.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
You also notice the dirt pile is gone. That was moved over to Central Services or somewhere for the park department to use. And the area has been replanted with grass. And the landscaper was out last week and today putting in the remaining plantings. I don't know if they're quite finished yet, but they were planting quite a lot of stuff today. And then kind of side benefit to that and the 300 dock, we've gotten quite a few compliments on the 300 dock decking. So far as people have come in and walked on it and pulled a cart down it, they really seem to like it. We'll see how it does over time. And same thing with the parking lot. Most people think, whether they agree or disagree with the idea of a parking lot, they do agree that what they put in here looks really nice. So there you go. And unless anybody has any questions, I'll leave it at that for now.
Go ahead.
Is there anything new on the master plan?
No.
Thank you.
Just 1 second, please. Any other questions for Mr. Frank? Moving on, Ms. Palicki, administration.
It's a new customer listing for this year, and it's as of May that we had 91 new customers, and that is 13 more than we had last year at this time. That we only, we had 85. So we got 19 more than last year at this time.
Super.
And there's also an occupancy review of how many slips of permit and what we have left. And this good weather is bringing more people out looking for slip ships. And that's all I have.
I'm sure we'll be wanting to take a little further look at this and maybe have some more comments at our next meeting. Looks good. Any questions for Mrs. Palicki? Sam?
I just have a couple of comments. Number one, glad to see you back to work, Mary Ann. That's the listen, everything's okay. And the other thing is, to call to the board's attention, that even though our slip holder roster has not been filled for the year yet, when you look at the income numbers, we're quite a bit ahead of where we were this time last year. By a significant number. So, congratulations to the staff. Thank you.
Very good point. Thank you for noticing that right away. Anything else from this collective, Danny?
Maybe just another comment. Looks like jet skis are still real popular. But everywhere we have a spot for one, we've got 74 spots for them. We've got all 74 filled, so they're still popular.
And I'm quite sure there's thoughts on any other spots we can maybe find some. Leave that up to the staff.
A point of interest, Dan, when we made the decision to put in the first few over by the bathhouse, we were really worried that we were wasting that money because we thought there would be a big cultural difference between people using jet skis and people using boats. And we discovered that almost all of the original renters were boat owners who had teenagers that didn't want to come down for the weekend. And the jet skis was a big, big help in that regard. So it's really funny. Sometimes you worry about things that don't need to be worried about.
Is that still pretty true, that most of the jet ski owners are boat owners also?
A lot of them are, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
That's good. It's just part of what we do. We look to see what the public wants, and we work to take care of that need, take care of that niche. I think we're all concerned about that. Staff seems to be doing a real good job of it, as usual. Anything else from Mrs. Palinka? Moving on, Mr. Garrett, budget, financial oversight, and bills.
All right, just going to touch on roughly 4 items. It's actually a little more than 4, but I'll explain the last one. If you go to the 5th item down on your claim for $3,677.85, that is our credit card for card member services, which is supplies, cable, telephone, etc. that's paid on that. And then if you go another 6 down for $1,899.22, that's Menards, and that is for supplies as well. And if you go 2 down from there for $1,688.07 for Republic, that is trash removal. And then the final 6 items on our claim docket are all refunds, which total $7,671.65. So if you take those 4, which is really 9 items, they are $14,936 of the $18,900, which leaves only about $4,000 left in the other items left on the list. And so I would make a motion that we pay our bills as presented, unless there are any other questions.
I have a question.
I need a second before we have questions. Do we have a second? We have a second. Questions? Mrs. Beer.
The refunds, are they all for the same thing? What are the refunds for again? I'm sorry.
People who
Canceled their slip because they sold their boats and things.
It's a pretty standard, most, all these things.
Yeah. I'd say we have less cancellations this year than we've had in the past. Seems like.
Ms. Mayor, that's good?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote on accepting the payment of the bills as read. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Anything else?
That's all I have.
All right. Mr. Haynes, claims and insurance?
I was going to cover the parking lot, but it's taken care of.
All right.
That's it.
Okay. Anything for John Haynes? Anyone? Hearing none, moving on. Myself on port operations. we're going to talk about that, we're going to talk about that, we're going to talk about other people that are doing these, all the other people. I don't have anything particularly to talk about that won't already be coming up in a few minutes with other people. So unless somebody has a question for me, we'll move on. All right, moving on. Mr. Messina, Board of Communications, Special Events.
I'm just going to mention, as it was already too, the doc rep meet. The first one is this Saturday at 10 o'clock here in the conference room. There's either been or there will be an email or a letter going out to all representatives from each doc to attend.
Good.
That's all.
All right. And we're back to 3 meetings this year, June, July, and August. The second Saturday of each month at 10 o'clock. Okay, thank you, Mr. Messina. Mr. Manning, Basket Planning, Special Projects, glad to have you back.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. Actually, it's my understanding. Thank you for keeping me updated while I was gone. I wasn't able to get right back to you a lot of times because I was too busy, but I appreciate
Carry on.
I appreciate that very much. It's my understanding that we got the bids in for the Spring Point bathhouse, and I'm going to be calling a meeting of our committee to discuss that, and also I'm going to be calling a meeting this week. We could probably do them both at the same time to discuss the decking project and where we're going with that, since we've got a lot of information on that also.
And I think we're going to try, I'm not sure if I got back to you on this, I think the ESD situation, electric
Yes.
that'll be on the agenda also.
Yeah,
Because we've got some
that'll be under
information.
the decking portion of it, yeah.
And when you set up that meeting, I've asked Mr. Johns if he could be in attendance because there's several things in there that we need to cover that he can enlighten us with.
Well, I guess I'll let him come.
At your meeting, I'm suggesting that we call him.
That's good.
Don't be careful, Bruce. We didn't forget.
I know.
Right, Dan?
All right, anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Anybody else have anyone have any comments or questions from Mr. Manor? Okay, there's a lot of things going on. Bruce hasn't been able to be here in the process for us for a few weeks now. So some things are backlogged that as soon as we have the committee meeting and things idea that he can bring to the board and talk about. So I mean that we can finalize. We just have a bunch of information right now, but no direction on how to go. If that makes sense, everyone. So I'm assuming by next meeting that we'll be able to talk about the things he mentioned, decking ESD and Spring Point. We're going to talk a little bit more about Spring Point tonight. Mr. Zaptoon's going to be talking about that in a few minutes, I believe. Unless anyone else has any questions from Mr. Manor, we'll move on. Mrs. Mayor, Advertising Public Relations.
Excuse me, I have some general information. This Friday is the Conference on the Environment here in Michigan City. It will be held at Blue Chip Casino, Friday, June 7th, 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. The event is free. You have to register through the Michigan City Sanitary District. That number is 219-874-7799, and lunch will be provided. It's complimentary. So again, the Conference on the Environment this Friday. Boaters are welcome, fishermen, or any environmentalists. Also, this Friday is First Fridays as well. So they'll have their usual events and things downtown. And the Kitty Parade is June 22nd, 1 o'clock downtown as well. So just some general information to put out there. That's it.
Particularly that First Friday, in the summertime particularly,
Yes.
That's a fun thing to do. Come down Franklin Street. Look at everything we've got here. Thank you for that. Questions from Mrs. Muir? All right, Mr. Zach Noon, I think you've got a few things you want to bring up to our attention.
Yeah, the first thing is the bid that we received for the Spray Point bathhouse. You may recall 2 meetings ago, I believe it was May 6th, we received a single bid. However, the bid is a non-conforming bid. We had asked for a base bid, then 3 separate alternatives. The first would be the base bid plus a shower room. The second would be the base bid plus installing stainless steel fixtures. And the third would be the base bid and furnish and install concrete block walls. The bidder decided to roll all those alternatives into one single bid for $157,000, thereby denying the board the opportunity to price out this project as it wanted. It is a non-conforming bid, and on that basis alone, the board could reject it and seek bids from contractors and bidders who are willing to abide by the terms of the bid proposal, which would be give us a base bid and give us additional costs for 3 alternatives as set forth in the bid proposal. So my recommendation would be to reject the bid as non-conforming and rebid.
I have a point I'd like to bring up, and I'm not sure. I'll ask the harbor master to correct me. I believe there was a verbalization from Mr. Portras that the cement block thing may or may not have been in that bid.
Yeah, I believe it was not included, the concrete block, but it did include option 1 and option 2.
Which were not included.
Right. And as you say, as you explained to the board, the bid was just a couple of pages and it really didn't detail a lot.
Right.
So this is it. Mr. Aaron.
I know you had a question about whether it had there was some other paperwork that was like, not dealing with a terrorist. I don't remember what the exact. Did you get that stuff as well, or?
Well, the thing is, if you're above $150,000, then you have to go through a much more involved process. There's a continuum of, for example, let's say you have a maintenance contract that's expected to be $25,000 or less. You can solicit 3 bids by telephone or fax, and that's the low end. But when you get up above $150,000, this one came in at $157,000, and that's not to say that we expected it to come in that high. So we didn't follow these procedures, but if you're going to submit a bid that's over $150,000, then that potentially triggers all those other obligations for a board when it's considering awarding a bid of over $150,000. So those things, we did not receive those things. Now, we didn't expect to receive those because we didn't think we were bidding a project that would be above $150,000. But it comes back above $150,000, but more importantly, it comes back non-conforming. It's not what we asked for.
Gotcha. Okay. I just was curious if we had to have that or if we didn't.
Yeah. If we done the top tier where it's over $150,000, then all those things have to come in with the bid.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's non-conforming.
Thank you.
Okay.
And again, I don't mean to apologize, but because Mr. Manor was not able to be here last couple of weeks, some of the stuff that looks like it's been delayed, this has appropriately been delayed until Mr. Zach Noon can take a look at it, get back to us, and now we have to go to the Special Projects Committee just to take a look at it again, see the direction, and we'll bring that back to the board and move forward with whatever. So I'll just try to let the board know what's happening.
Good luck.
I understand. Okay, there was a mouthful on the Spray Point thing. Anybody else have some questions concerning what Mr. Zach Noon talked about? Because he's talking about rejecting this bid. Yes.
Should we wait then, like table it until you guys get a chance to look at stuff,
or is that just normal process that?
Well, I think the bid is non-conforming, and we should not accept a non-conforming bid. I think we should reject the bid, and then the board can discuss whether it wants to rebid or take some time before going out to rebid.
Well, do we need to vote on a negative?
Well, I think we need to have closure on this.
Okay.
So that,
I agree.
Okay.
I think we would vote to reject the bid.
Okay.
That being said, what's the board's pleasure to move forward?
I'll make a
Hold
motion.
back.
I'll make a motion to reject the bid.
We have a motion on the floor to reject the bid, the current bid of $156,000 plus change on the Spray Point bathhouse that we're considering. I'm looking for a second.
I second.
We have a second from Mrs. Meir. We'll take questions at this time on the motion. Questions?
I'd like to add that I did in my motion that the reason we're rejecting it is because it's a non-conforming bid.
Correct.
So heard and corrected. Any other corrections? Any other questions? Hearing none, moving forward for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion accepted. All right.
Another matter I have, without getting into any of the detail of the discussion that was undertaken at the executive session, your council's recommendation is that council be authorized to proceed with small claims complaints against the owners of the 4 boats that were involved in the recent auction. After the auction, 2 vessels, I believe, were sold for far less than what was owed to the Port Authority. 2 other vessels did not receive any bids at all. There's approximately a little over $10,000 still outstanding after the 2 vessels that were sold. And at least in my experience, a lawsuit does increase the probability that the Port Authority will recover some amount. Perhaps not all. In some cases, we have been able to recover the entire amount due. In most cases, we have not, but we have received some payments toward that end, at least as much as needed to cover the cost of the litigation. The filing of the complaint and serving the defendants should be $200 or less, I would expect, and hopefully that will prompt some payments on the part of these boat owners to get their balances current.
Okay.
Question. The money that's already owed is one issue, but that's not the end of the issue, because those boats are still on our property. The ones that did not receive a bid have to be disposed of.
Right.
Maybe they have to be demolished and trashed, hauled off to the landfill. All that has a cost. Is that cost going to be rolled into our claim?
We would include the additional storage fees and any fees that I think was the Port Authority in the past. They would cut it up and then dispose of it, and we would roll those costs into the claim as well.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we authorize our attorney to go ahead and proceed with this.
I'd like to just pause on that motion just for a second and do some background really quick on our executive session on this, and then I'll get back to your motion because I like the motion. I'd like to hear that. About a week ago, we had an executive session on this issue. We tried to have an executive session concerning the abandoned boats, and we were not able to have a quorum, but we did have a discussion. We couldn't have a quorum, so we weren't able to come to any formal decisions. What we suggested was that Mr. Zach Noon present what he just presented right now. We thought that would be a direction that we should go, which is why we're talking about this today. And it is as Mr. Johnson has encompassed in his motion. Hopefully that was clear. I just wanted to talk about that executive session for a second. So, Mr. Johns, if your motion is still on the floor to accept the authorization of this litigation?
Yes, and the reason it's still on the floor, from my opinion, is that we have 2 separate issues here. We have a new policy, that's one issue, and we have dealing with current events. That's the issue of my motion.
I couldn't catch all of that. Are you talking about everything that was on that list? The authorization for litigation?
my motion is directed toward the 2019 situation as it exists right now. It does not include anything on the new proposed policy for the future.
Okay. Mr. Zach Noon presented an idea for an authorization of litigation. I'd like to read that and see if that encompasses what Mr. Johns has talked about. It's the first paragraph of this page.
Well, I think what he's talking about are two separate things. His motion is directed to what action the board is going to authorize against the 4 vessel owners who have balances left over after the 2019 auction. And I think that the separate issue is whether the board wants to adopt a new policy that will perhaps streamline the process of trying to get past due balances paid before we have to go through the somewhat cumbersome and time-consuming effort of the boat auction.
All right, let me just I'm in agreement with all of that. I had a quick little get-together with the staff just before the meeting because I'd been away for a couple of days, and there seemed to be some questions on that I believe Mr. Zach Noon, and the staff are still considering on the resolution for the future, the resolution to adopting a past due policy. I'm not sure that we're ready to move forward on that piece. I think we might be ready to move forward on to authorize council to file small claims against the 4 boat owners that we're talking about now. And it was my understanding that what the motion was talking about.
My motion is defined as dealing with the situation as it now exists in 2019 in terms of money that's owed us.
Okay.
I will second that.
Okay, and I believe we're clear on that. I'm much more clear on that, just want to make sure. So we have a motion and a second to move forward, to authorize our attorney to move forward on with these 4 boat owners. Any questions?
Yes. I didn't come really prepared for what happened at the executive board meeting because I missed it.
Sorry.
But I do believe we have a policy already for this. Our previous lawyer set up a policy, and it was sort of followed, but there was no ending to the policy. So I do believe it's time to finish that policy that was started.
That's fine.
But there's got to be an end, and there was no end to the policy. We just go after the person, and that was the end of it.
I hadn't heard that there was anything out there, so nor had Mr. Hutton, questions? Do you happen to have?
No, I wasn't quite sure if that's what we were going to talk about today. But there was a policy started years ago.
John, you're bringing something.
But there was no end. There was no end to the when the Port Authority would just at the end of it would just dispose of them and add it to the bill. Mr. Zagny brought up a while back about the State Board of Accounts chasing this money, and how long. And my question was, how long do we have to chase this money before we can just call an end to it?
I think we have the ability to call an end to it whenever we want.
Yeah, I think if the board determines that based on council's advice and recommendation that it's not worth spending any additional funds to try to recover the past due balance, then you could drop the lawsuit, dismiss the lawsuit, send over to a collection agency, any number of options. In other words, if by authorizing, as in the proposed policy, and I'm apologizing, I'm flipping over into that for a moment, giving management the discretion to say we want to go over this voter doesn't mean you have to go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
At any point you could stop. You could say that okay, the boater has paid 2/3 of what is owed, and now the boater has completely stopped paying and has informed us he or she's going to declare bankruptcy. You write it off at that point. Or you could file the lawsuit, the boater defaults, you get a default judgment, turn it over to a collection agency. The collection agency works for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and says they don't have any money. Write it off at that point. The board always has discretion to when to say the litigation stops.
I guess at what point, if we say we don't want to pursue it anymore, it's costing us too much, and XYZ still owes us $10,000, that person's not paying, but we still have the boat on the property. At what point could we say, hey, we've had enough and we dispose of the boat? I think maybe that's where you might...
Does that just need to be made in motion at that point in time?
I don't know.
Well, the way the proposed policy works is that the first step we would take would be the litigation step, the small claims, because it's so much easier and it generally produces better results. Then, if that fails, then we go the auction route, because the auction route is so time-consuming and so cumbersome. Then at that point, after the auction, if the balance is not cleared up, if the boat remains there, then the board has the option at that point to say, scrap the boat, get it off our property.
Joe,
Mr. Johnson.
if it may help,
Sure.
we have a policy that you're going to propose.
Yes.
That we haven't talked our way through, that the board hasn't had an opportunity to really think about and understand. And it's pretty straightforward, and I think when you do that, it will answer an awful lot of questions. The other issue is we still got the 2019 money to collect. I suggest that I call for a motion. I'd like to have a vote.
I don't know if I called for a second.
There was a second.
We have a second. These were questions. We have many more questions on the motion.
Maybe just another comment, but I was understanding that we do currently have a policy in place. I don't think we ever have an ending date. I'd almost recommend that staff, somebody goes back, and it's not the past attorney, it was 2 attorneys ago that made this. I don't know if it was made into a policy and say it's just for this one season, or this is the way we should go in the future.
All right. Do you have a copy of it? Do you know where it is? No one else seems to know anything about
My
it.
opinion on that is, may not be correct, but my opinion is, I never remember having a policy that the board voted on and adapted as a policy. We've had a lot of past practice, and we've had a lot of positions and decisions, but to put it together in a printed, certified policy, I can't remember that we've ever done that. We've been winging it an issue at a time for as long as I can remember.
Well, if we had it, it would have to be in the handbook. That would be part of our duties.
No.
You know, this is what we talked about a little bit in our non-executive session, just to kind of think about moving forward. It was our suggestion at that time. Danny, you were there. Danny, Sam, and I were there, and have Mr. Zatoon kind of formulate some policy. Well, at that time, we weren't aware that there was any other policy at the time. So if there's one out there, and Mr. Johnson doesn't remember it, I don't hear anybody from the staff talking about knowing anything about it. I've got to presume it's non-existent. Let's move forward. That's just my thought. Anyway, any more questions? Do we have motion and a second on the floor? And we're ready to vote, unless there are more questions. I guess I should back up and say, Danny, did your question get answered?
It was just a comment.
Okay.
It was just a comment, not a question.
Okay, motion is on the floor. We need to move forward. Any other comments or questions? John, what you got?
Okay. If there's going to be a new policy possibly to take effect, will it be including the 2019 balance, or are we going to start this after?
Mr. Johns?
The 2019 money and balance and issue is a whole separate issue. The new policy that we might adopt tonight would not be a policy that affected those stockholders who owe us money under a non-existing policy.
Okay, that's what the question was. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right. All those in favor of accepting this motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I didn't hear enough votes. I thought I'd like to do a roll call on that just to make sure. I didn't hear 5 or 6 people calling. I'd like to take a roll call vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I apologize. 6 ayes, move forward. All right, thank you. I thought everybody has a copy of this. Joe, did you send this out to everybody, or was it just the people that were in the meeting?
No, I did. I sent that to all the board members. I had made a couple of slight changes to the last portion of the policy, and I do have here with me copies of that. If the board would like to take it home with them and look it over, and then perhaps take this up at the next meeting, that's fine as well. I would just highlight the changes that I made, and it's in the final, the therefore paragraph. It's the carryover paragraph beginning
The last
at the
one?
bottom of page 1. So if you go to
Which paragraph, I'm sorry?
the paragraph begins at the bottom of page 1.
Okay.
Now
the board
therefore
has
be
determined-
resolved, then it carries over to page 2. So if you start at the second line, Board of Directors of the Michigan City Port Authority, that management, I added, in its discretion and in consultation with the board's attorney, is authorized to file a lawsuit against a boat owner whenever the boat owner's unpaid balance is in excess of $1,000 and has remained unpaid for at least 60 days, and in management's and the board's attorney's opinion, litigation is necessary to collect the past due balance. So what I wanted to do was to clarify from the earlier draft that I had submitted that management has discretion. It doesn't mean that because somebody's balance is $1,000 and it's been a balance of $1,000 for 60 days, that means you automatically go file a lawsuit. There could be a customer who has called and said, we've been out of the country for 3 months. We're just now getting back. We found your bill. We're going to send you a check today. So it gives management discretion to use the lawsuit as a means to collect a balance that they believe is not going to be paid otherwise.
Okay. Just before our meeting, as I said, I came in because I hadn't seen the harbor master in about a week, and I wanted to see how this was going to be just coming up, not discussing. And he had said that you two had been sharing information, and harbor master brought Ms. Palicki into the conversation, and our meeting was started. And I don't know whether the three of you are on the same page to go forward with this yet. Well, I don't know if you want to talk about it some more before we submit these changes to the board.
Well, I think I'd like to hear further from staff based on the changes that were made.
I agree.
And then that would give the board additional time to consider the policy as it's been revised since the initial draft.
Could you send that one out to everybody then?
Can I hand it out right now?
I'm sorry.
I've got it with me.
He's got him now.
Oh, okay. You guys good? Jimmy, got it.
I don't have a copy of it.
The last paragraph.
Second page, last paragraph?
Yeah. Second line, the addition is in its discretion, and I believe in consultation with the board's attorney is already there. And then the one is authorized to file a lawsuit against the boat owner. In the original version, the amount was blank, I'm suggesting $1,000, and the number of days was blank, I'm suggesting 60 days. And then I added, and in management and the board's attorney's opinion, litigation is necessary to collect the past due balance. So if there are options that the staff can take short of litigation to collect the balance, they can pursue those means. Thanks.
Look at this some more. I just eyeballed the staff, they're okay. I don't want to push this policy, particularly the correction. I don't think Mr. Manners has had an opportunity to read this yet. If there are board members who would like to push this off until the next meeting, that would be fine with me. I would like to hear comment on that until they've had a chance to review this more. If there's no comments, I can move forward, look for a motion to approve. Comments, please. John?
Yes, it still doesn't have a closure. I guess what I don't understand, at some point, there's got to be a statute in Indiana that at one point, complying with the Indiana Board of Accounts, that has been an issue in the past, and it's never come up ever again. We couldn't resolve these matters before because of the State Board of Accounts. That is why we went to the auction and litigation trying to get the monies, and it just seems to be dragging it out and out and out. That's what I was wondering. What is the term limit? I agree with what he said, that if the board can at some point decide to just stop chasing.
Well, I'm guessing, and just looking again at what Mr. Zach Dune just explained to us that he put in here, I'm guessing that if we wanted to put an end to these 4 votes right now, all we have to do is have a motion and say, we're through with this. We're tired. We've done enough looking for, and we're done. And approve that and say, that's it. Maybe send one more letter out to people and say, if you don't get rid of your votes here in the next 60 days, we're going to get rid of them. I think we have the authority he has just explained to us that we could do something like that.
Okay, but the last motion that was made was to go ahead and pursue this, but pursue it
yes.
Till how long?
And I think that's the next step. Go ahead, John, or Joe, please walk through that.
It's incremental steps, because the policy doesn't address, when you've gone far enough. What the policy addresses is giving management the opportunity to initiate litigation and then report back to the board on how the litigation is doing. If management reports back that we sued 4 people and we collected 100%, that's the end of it. Management reports we sued 4 people, we collected 100% from 2, 50% from another, 25% from another, and 0 from another. And then explains why. 0, they went bankrupt. 25%, we can't, they paid 2 payments and then they moved away, we can't find them. So it's on a case-by-case basis that the board determines whether they want to spend more money or not. I don't think you want to put in a hard and fast policy tying the board's hands, because every situation is going to be a little bit different. Maybe, I think the gist of your question is this going to mean that we have to hold on to somebody's vote for 2 years or 3 years before we can do anything?
Yes.
No. Once we file the litigation, and if that doesn't work, then the board can then say, okay, auction the boat. After the boat has gone through the auction process, then under the statute, you can then destroy the boat. But you have to go through all those steps that the auction requires before you can get to that point.
Okay, that was what I was.
Mr. Johns?
Yeah, and Joe, in regards of what you just explained to us, and John's question about State Board of Accounts, I think the policy that we're going to consider at the next meeting pretty well lays out the incremental steps as you've identified. And that then gives us the opportunity to justify with the State Board of Accounts, if they ever ask, what did you guys do to get that money back?
Exactly.
That sounds good.
So we've shown good faith and good effort.
Right.
Then we ought to be in the clear with the State Board of Accounts.
Exactly. I agree completely.
That's where I was going.
Okay.
And
I'd like to table this. I'd like to table this until, excuse me.
This is me on that question.
Go ahead.
I have a question, just a curiosity question. If I'm not sure if I'm 100% correct, but when it comes to billing and auditing, for instance, if it was a medical bill, I'm under the understanding that they can come back within 10 years and still try to collect a bill from you or say, hey, we missed you during this audit and here's your bill. Is that something similar to what you're talking about too?
No, I've heard that. I've heard those stories, but no, that's not what I was.
Okay, but yeah, you guys mapped it out.
Okay.
Just curious.
Okay. We have no motions on the floor, we've just got discussions. I said I'd like to table this until our next meeting. I'm encouraging everyone to please read this, get a better understanding, and we'll bring it up in the next meeting. Yes,
So nothing's changed from what you sent us other than those highlighted areas?
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
all right.
Oh, yeah, I would change the date.
Change this to.
Yeah, and then,
Give me a motion.
what I would do here is the resolution would then be 2906.
Oh, that is, okay, that's, yeah.
I do it by the date.
Do that, okay.
Yeah, then I'll change that.
So there'll be some other changes.
That way, the resolution will tell us when it was adopted.
Mr. Zachman, do you have anything else?
And that's all I have.
Okay, any other comments? Excuse me, do we have any new business come before the board? Yes, sir. Mr. John.
If I may, and this is primarily for the staff, but June is the Coastal Awareness Month for the state of Indiana. And that's a program that's being sponsored by the DNR and the sanitation. It's a month-long program. And it's focused primarily on the 3 counties that border the lake. The W.G. Jackson boat is going to be docked here for a couple, 3 days during that period. Free tours and that sort of thing. That boat, as I understand it, is a floating laboratory. Will all of that activity have any impact on our staff and on our operation?
Minimal, if any.
Okay, do we have any part to play in that? What time is it?
Nothing major. Mainly it's stuff that goes on the beach or the boat ties up over here on the wall. But it doesn't generate enough traffic to be a problem, so it's usually fine.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, any other new business come before the board? Any old business to come before the board? Mr. Cooper, last chance. Appreciate you coming, listening. Next meeting is 2 weeks from today, June 17th. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Good job.
John?